My name's Monk Rowe, and I'm pleased to have Art Barron here with me. And we had the pleasure of an in-person interview a few years ago, and also having Art at Hamilton College. And I thought it would be useful to find out what's going on with him in this particular time of trouble. And generally speaking, Art, how are you doing?
Well, I'm about as crazy as everybody else, I think. You know, it's a big mood swing roller coaster ride we got going here, but try to practice, and I continue teaching, which is good. I'm getting more and more students to, doing it on the internet. And I'm pleased to say that, I use, unorthodox teaching methods, let's say, with movement, with visualization, breathing, mindful breathing and meditation and stuff. And it's actually working. I'm pretty happy to say that.
I'm glad you said that because I went back and I was reading your interview, and you had described at that time some of the things you did when a person came to your apartment for a lesson, and having them move around the space and sort of resistance and these very interesting ideas. And I was thinking, how would you do that?
Yeah. Well, are you talking about like the walking through cheese one?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. That, man, you can make a kid, an hour of walking through cheese is amazing. And I haven't tried the walking through cheese yet because I'd like to be moving when I'm doing it. And when I get my new computer, I probably won't need the earphones as much, but maybe I will, or I'll get some speakers or something. But yeah, that could be a challenge, but I'm going to give it a shot.
Yeah.
I have a new trumpet student that I want to try that with, because it's like we got to make hay while the sun's shining any way we can.
Exactly. You mentioned that you're practicing. I'm wondering about self-motivation. How do you deal with downtime? Are you motivated or not motivated?
Well, it varies. And sometimes I just have to do the act as if or fake it till you make it kind of idea. Because like when I have something, to look forward to, like I did a wonderful CD last fall out in California with a gentleman who has an organization called the American Jazz Institute named Mark Masters. And he wrote a bunch of features for me with his big band, doing a lot of plunger stuff and high with a little mute inside the trombone. And I took 2 months to make sure my chops were up to being able to do take after take every day for like 3 days. And, so that was an existing goal. So now I have to make my own goals. Sometimes I try to talk myself into, wow, people are doing a lot of playing online now. What if someone calls me, hey, we want you to play Black, Brown, and Beige, the work song, tomorrow. So I got to be ready for that. So, God, I just scared myself. We're going to have to cut this short, Monk. I got to go practice.
All right. Let me know when you get it down and we'll reconvene.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked me that. That's a good way to look at it because it could happen.
It could. That's I'll have to use that myself because I have trouble without goals myself. Like, well, I could be working on arrangements, but when's the next time anybody can gather to play them? It's easy to talk yourself out of it, I think.
Yeah. You're getting to the crux of it.
Yes. Also, as a band leader, I wonder what it was like for you to have to call your bandmates and say,
hasta la vista?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the last gig, this great gig I had for the Dukesmen, I think I told you about, where I had Bill Crow, the 90-some-odd-year-old bass player, and Bernard Purdy, the great drummer. By the way, Purdy swings his butt off. I remember meeting him in Richmond, Virginia at a jazz party, oh gosh, probably 30 years ago, maybe. And you know, these big parties with a whole group of musicians, and they put you together. And I had my first band I played with, he was playing drums, and I was like, oh my God. I told him, we were on radio station BGO right in the beginning of March before this gig we were to do. And I said, Purdy, I had to call someone. I think I called my mother. I don't know. But anyway, so we did it. As a matter of fact, I'll get your copy of it once I coalesce it somehow. Once I can make some CDs. We did this radio show on the NPR radio station BGO down here. And it was March 9th. And our gig was on the 19th. Mm-hmm. And the talk of the pandemic just started happening. And the band was great. And I hadn't led the band in a while. And I went back to this management company that gave us great gigs in the late 80s and 90s. And it kind of fizzled out after a while, but great people. And I knew that a few of them had passed away, and a whole new coterie of people were operating it. And at first they weren't interested, but I sent them the information. They said, send it. Then all of a sudden they kind of got excited. So here I was about to do a big concert at this arts center down in Tribeca on the 19th of March, and they were going to send one of their agents over. All this was about to happen. And I was feeling, this feels like a resurrection. It feels right. It feels like something to put my time in. And I had this friend of mine named Monk Rowe who got me a gig on October 30th, which we still are like this because, you know, I just talked to Purdy last night and I told him about it because I didn't want, you know, I wanted to wait just a little more. But good news is better to give than bad news. So far it's good news, man. We greatly appreciate that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so it's hard when I have to call people up. They know it. They say, yeah, we pretty much figured this out. But it's, you know, I have to do it person by person. And I try to stay away from the email magic. You know, I like to call.
Yeah. Did you get offered, even with maybe solo work too, people saying, well, we'll reschedule, or it's very rare for anybody to say, you know what, we're going to send you part of the fee.
Like you did.
Yeah.
I got that money earmarked in my bank account if this all goes south.
That's okay.
Doesn't mean I'm gonna give it to you. It's just earmarked.
It's earmarked. Earmarked.
Yeah, it should be a good feeling.
Yeah.
No, nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, the gentleman who was producing the concert on the 19th, after the radio show, he actually offered to give me some money from the money we would make on the 19th to give just as a little thank you for doing the radio show. Didn't mean I was going to pay him a whole lot more, but by the time we got talking again, everything was, you know, it was like gone. That was before it was canceled. So we're rescheduled for like 2021. Right.
Is the Musicians Union involved in any kind of support for their members?
They're trying. The federation, the overall federation, the union that's for the whole country, of which local unions are part of that federation. Kind of sounds like the Federation of Planets, you know, Star Trek. I wonder what the prime directive for the American Federation of Musicians is.
Something like, find a gig, damn it.
That's it, prime directive. And so there is a thing called the Emergency Relief Fund, which is helping some people. Mm-hmm. And this is something, I hope your listeners hear this, because this is really good to know. People in the performing arts, there's something that our musicians union in New York City got involved with several years ago called the Actors Fund. And those are people you can go to get some kind of help, even if it's just moral support. But, you know, they know where things are, and they're really good. I go to someone there every year for setting up my Medicare, which health insurance and things like that. So there are resources. A lot of, you know, there are grants available. I know Coda Magazine has been issuing some small grants, and there's the Jazz Foundation of America is trying to help. And one other thing, this is not a musical answer, excuse me. But if you're having trouble with unemployment, like I tried online like crazy, because there's what's called the gig or 1099 unemployment, which has been brought into being. And the word gig actually used to be work for all kinds of freelance work. That's where it came from, I found out.
Know that. I thought that was.
I didn't either.
Mm-hmm.
That was, you know, the ownership by the musicians. So it's like there were several other kinds of freelance work that was called the gig employment.
Oh.
And so musicians held on to that idea, as far as I can see, the way they talk about it. Well, here's what happened. A friend of mine who was politically active, and I know this is not about music, but this could help musicians, because it was impossible. I could not make the website work. And then when I was getting close, I got locked out of it. A friend of mine who's very politically active, who I'm often signing petitions for, I just, on a lark, I called her. And she found my state senator's office in Albany, and she got a local person there to contact me, you know, someone who works, you know, a helper with the senator. And she connected me with unemployment people who called me.
Whoa.
And here, I mean, it is a really detailed thing. You have to apply for the regular, the not gig unemployment, the regular, like if say you had a 9 to 5, 5 days a week kind of job. You have to apply for that, and obviously you'll get denied. Then you have to apply for the gig unemployment, or what they call the pandemic, PAU or something, pandemic something unemployment. And unemployment called me on the phone, spent about 45 minutes with me, walking. They were actually filling it out. I wasn't online, I was just on the phone. So this is really important. I hope your listeners hear this, that find your local senator's office, state senator,
Mm-hmm.
and call them. And so this, if you get people as nice as I got, they not only filled it all out online, but they walked me through everything, got me denied on the same call, and then applied for the pandemic unemployment.
Wow.
And I got it. And like a week later or something, it kicked in. I mean, so I hope, you know, it's not a musical idea, but it's well, it is musical in that a lot of musicians are in this situation.
That's really good information. I had no idea.
Yeah, you know, and I've told people that, because the person that helped me can't help you, like if you wanted to do it, because
Right.
you're upstate New York, you have a different senator,
Right.
I would think. You know.
Yes. That was a week shortly after your last gig, where it seemed like every other day some well-known, much-loved musicians were showing up in the obit section. And
Yeah,
I'm wondering if you were close to any of them.
a lot of them.
Yeah.
Bucky Pizzarelli.
Yeah.
Bucky had a lot of friends. I'm not claiming sole ownership, you know, and I didn't see him that much. But as he got older, I met him in a recording session a zillion years ago, and he always remembered me. Months could go by.
Huh.
And I started, for a while, there was this organization at Lincoln Center, not even actually part of Jazz at Lincoln Center. It was PTSPD or something, not the post-traumatic syndrome, but similar letters. And they got a lot of nursing home gigs and things like that. And I had great players. I don't know if you remember Fred Staten. You met Fred, of course, you know Fred. You know him. He was in his late 90s when we were doing these gigs. And, you know, he did the last gig he did, I believe, was with my band at a open air church gig down here at St. Mark's Church. He was 102.
Oh,
And he was playing his arse off. And at the end of the gig, I said, Fred, did you have a good time? He said, man, I couldn't find a reed the whole gig. 102. I said, that was just cracked me up. And I looked at him, I said, Fred, you're still doing it.
Whatever you
But
give me some.
yeah, you know, oh my God. And so I tell you, when Bucky passed right around the same time, the wonderful producer, Hal Wilner, do you know who he was?
Yes.
I did a lot of projects with him. My first project with him was an amazing project of doing Mingus. It was called Mingus Weird Nightmare, Meditations on Mingus. And I arranged a piece on that on Eclipse in a totally different fashion, not about a black and white person in a couple,
I see.
but about the first time mankind ever saw an eclipse, cavemen. And we had all these Harry Partch instruments. I played didgeridoo, all kinds. And he actually got Leonard Cohen to recite some poetry, just a part of the poem that Mingus wrote, The Chill of Death. Hal was always creating unbelievable groups of people. And you know, that's when I got mad at the powers that be. You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That those deaths didn't need to happen.
Well, it's, I don't mind going to a place in our conversation where this is not just a conversation about musicians, but I'm interested in your general feeling about the state of our country.
Okay, I can tell you that it's gotten clearer to me. The Japanese, I've heard that this may not be true, but I heard it so long ago that it was true that I choose to believe it. So in Chinese, rather, they have all these symbols for writing the language, and that the symbol for crisis is the same for opportunity, which spiritually speaking makes a lot of sense. I mean, the system had gotten so corrupt. Let's face it, it's gotten extremely corrupt on both sides of the aisle, more on one than the other, more on the right than the left, I think, but still corrupt. To make a change, to make it's almost like the whole thing had to blow up to make some new grassroots changes. And that's what's happened. It's blown up. Every time I see the man in the White House do something really insane, day by day, I tell myself I shouldn't be aghast at that, because we know what he's like. I mean, so there's so much stuff, including racism now, in addition to just poor leadership about the whole pandemic thing. You know, standing there, well, we got 10 cases. It'll be down to 5, then nothing in a few days. Don't worry about it. Mm-hmm. And then going as far as saying, well, 100,000 is not bad. We're doing a great job. We're not doing a great job. And people know it. But people also are starting to realize the only way you know when he lies is when he opens his mouth. They used to say that about Bush Sr., but it's more real now.
Yes.
So the story, and I'm not afraid to speak these things, and I really believe in spiritual change. And I think individual change makes for changes in the world. And a lot of stuff has hit the fan now. It's not easy to be in it. Some days I'm really upset, but it's also, I think it is a time of opportunity.
Isn't it interesting if someone had asked me 2 weeks ago what kind of incident would replace the newscasters doing it, you know, like here's the first story of my segment, to replace conversation about the pandemic, I would have thought it'd have to be like a nuclear explosion or something. And now we have this racial incident sparked in Minneapolis, and wow, it has
Yeah,
become story number one.
the critical mass has been achieved.
Yes.
It's here. Everything's like no more. And here the answer is, I'm not saying all police are bad, but the answer for a lot of municipalities is like, their police get wartime army weapons. That's somehow the illegality of that has been circumvented, or maybe it's not illegal everywhere. And it's just gotten so, like, Trump's feeling about it is, I'm going to have law and order. I don't care how many people I have to kill or tear gas. It's just absurd. His rule is totally absurd. He's a monarch in his eyes, and he feels like he can do anything he wants. But then there are good people. I love the fact that some of the reports about the good police that are standing with the demonstrator. Demonstrations shouldn't be seen as an affront to our peacetime. Demonstrations are the right of the people. Peaceful assembly. Now, I've even heard reports some of the people that are showing up and looting and rioting have been sought out to do that.
Uh-huh.
There is a group of people that does it automatically, but it's not the people that are trying to speak a message. I'm not going to get the quote perfect, but Martin Luther King said, "Rioting is the language of the unheard." Maybe that is it, what he said. I mean, people are not heard. When the God, I can't think of his name, for selling cigarettes in Staten Island, and the police killed him with a chokehold. That was like 6 years ago.
Right.
And it's just like, we have a chance. I know people with skin this color are like trying to figure out, what do we do now?
What do you do now?
Well, as I told you earlier, my wife, who is also a Caucasian from Norway, who's never seen anything like this, except on the news, and she doesn't want to march, and I understand it, because it's really dangerous with the virus too, and
Yeah.
I've got my feelings about that. I'm not sure, but she worked on it yesterday, and she came home and told me, and she's a bit shy. She gave me an idea that she wanted me to initiate. And I would have initiated it, but I really wanted her to. She said, let's call up all our Black or Afro-American friends. It's so hard to know what to say, but I think either is acceptable now. And tell them that we stand with them. And bring the conversation up to another level, bring the relationship up to another level. And you know what? We called several of our friends. I'm very lucky. I played with Stevie Wonder, Duke Ellington, B.B. King, other Black groups. John Faddis used to say to me, why don't you play with your own kind? And I've learned a whole lot. I can never know what it's like to be in the skin of a Black man, but I can see what it's like.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen, and this color of our skin is like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's we have a leg up.
Yeah, we have a pass, sort of.
Yeah, but there's a great word, white. Oh man,
Privilege.
Privilege. That's the perfect word, and I don't like that. So we called up all these people, had various responses, but all extremely positive.
Mm-hmm.
And there was also something, when you bring a relationship, a conversation up to the next level, when you say what you have to say, there's a pause, because our Black friends hadn't heard anything like this from us. And then they came in and spoke. And boy, I tell you, my wife and I were nervous during that pause. Did we do something wrong? Are we too liberal? Are we too something? And it never was the case.
Oh, good.
And I also have to give credit to my wife, Ingvild,
Mm-hmm.
because I said, look, she said, I'm shy, you do the talking. I said, this is your idea, and I don't want it to sound like it was my idea. I asked her about it today. I'm going to put it in Facebook and make it very clear it's her idea.
Excellent
Because
idea. Yeah.
I've been thinking about these issues for years and not knowing what to do about it. What do you do? It's like, you know, I mean, I had Vinnie Johnson, a drummer. I don't know if you ever knew of him. A wonderful black drummer, friend of mine. And he drove me to a lot of the gigs with the Dukes men. We got really, really tight. And we covered some ground together. And that was good because we spent a lot of time together. But I come from a background of middle white class, upper middle white class, maybe, or middle to upper, where the only blacks I saw were criminals going to prison on television news and garbage men. And man, you know, those tapes, they exist, you know, and like I finally had some, in high school, had a couple of black students, and a few of them and I got to be friends. You know, it's like, they're people. I heard, you know, a great show to listen to, you won't get it in the air, but online you can get on WNYC, public radio down in New York, 10 to 12 every weekday, Brian Lehrer. He has an amazing call-in show, and it's just continuing. And they bring up all these issues, you know, it just, you know, I mean, it took a pandemic and then to have a brutal killing of a man first, and then, but a black man, Black Lives Matter. And one thing I got to say, I understand this is not the time to be spouting off, well, white lives matter too. We got the privilege. We don't need to hear that.
Right.
What we need to hear is what I just said, Black Lives Matter.
Right.
And I believe this happened, and it was more intense, more stirring the pot because it's during the pandemic.
Right.
And that's good. I mean, it's not good he got killed. Nothing good about it. But if we can make something good come out of it, then we're being blessed.
Thanks for sharing that. Very important.
Yeah, and I hope if you're listening, people, that take a chance. Even if it's like you go into a store and a black man or a Hispanic man is running it, or woman, or friends, anything. Just speak the truth.
Yeah.
Hopefully it is your truth that you want to let them know you stand by them.
Do you have predictions about, let's suppose, and let's hope that this pandemic fades away. What do you think is going to be the landscape for live performances in the future?
I think it's going to take some time for people to really trust this. Although, you know, it's funny because there's an air in New York City, even though we're walking around with masks on, there's this sense, and spring is here, almost summer's here, that it's all gone. You know, and like sometimes when I go to wash my hands for 20 seconds, many times a day, I say, I could do 15 seconds. It's pretty cool. And no, you got to do 20 seconds. I'm like washing the skin off my hands. I'm not doing it with the same exuberance I did 3 weeks ago, but I'm still doing it. But the thoughts are like, oh, this is over. We have a little park near us, and my wife and I walk there a couple of times a week, fully masked, and, you know, get a coffee or something. And you see people, a lot of people with masks, but a lot of people just sitting too close together. Mm-hmm. You know, and so I think it might just, what I'm trying, the simple answer is I think it might be, well, there's two ways to look at it. There's the people who want to be careful about putting a lot of people in chairs in a room. And then the people say, come on, let's just do it. It's over. You know?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you say that because you and I have a gig scheduled, and I would love to be able to say yeah, get all your people in line. We're going to do it. But even if, like, we got some positive news regarding the fall semester and students coming back. But even then, you may have students on campus, but they may say something like, no large gatherings. In a concert hall, everybody has to sit like 6 seats apart or something. Those things are going to be
Yeah.
dealt with, and it's very hard to predict.
I forgot already, where we're performing, is it the same place that the Harlem Blues and Jazz Band played, or is it different? So that's not a very large space.
Very large space.
Say it again.
It's not that large a space,
Yeah.
but maybe other arrangements could be made, but we'll see.
Yeah.
But
I would.
I'm saying on tape that if we can't do the fall, then we're going to do it sometime.
Bless you. So I don't have to give the deposit back. Hell, great. I love it.
But I could use a loan now that you did so well with unemployment.
Oh. Watch what you say, Baron. Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate it's on tape, and I would have trusted you even if it wasn't on tape. You have a good reputation, my man.
Well, just to wrap up, this is a funny question about how you feel about yourself. We have so used to, playing gigs, that's what we do. And being in front of people, and that's what we do. And now we can't do it.
That's the premium question, man. It's not a funny question. It's a great question, because working on myself is something I've been doing much of my adult life, changing who I believe I am. And it's given me pause to look at, wow, a lot of, I don't want to say self-esteem, but I'm used to adulation. I'm used to the thing where I play for someone, 10 people, 1,000 people, 200, doesn't matter. And this energy, not even the words, oh, you sounded great, but the energy back and forth between us, I realized that I define myself from that. And it's like, it's not the total definition, but it's a good part. And I'll be honest with you and say something that you may not know. It's been an issue. I did not have an easy childhood of support. And I rebelled against it. And I've had to work much of my adult life to feel good about what I do. And I've really reached a great place on it. As a matter of fact, coming home from that radio show, I felt, man, all this work was worth it. I feel so good what I do. I'm one of these elders, and sitting there with Bill Crow and Purdy, and I was telling them, I was saying, all of those youngsters and me, almost an oldster, really appreciate you guys. And Bill Crow said, well, you're an up and coming oldster yourself, something like that, And I really realized, like, for so many years, I've been accepted, and it's coming in like gangbusters now. And so it's like, God damn, I feel so good about myself in this. And then the pandemic comes, but so it's taken some work, but I know I just exposed myself, because most people don't have a clue about that. Oh, you're great. You get up there and you take care of business. You do this, you do that. Yeah. And they're right. So it's a heavy time right now. I think a lot of people are working internally on themselves now.
Thank you for saying that. I experienced just a little bit of that when I got hired to do, with a bunch of other people, like, do a concert from your home for a local arts center. They're going to broadcast it. So we set up a camera.
Was that you alone or with other people online?
Yeah.
Say it again. It broke up.
Yeah, by myself. So mostly I play piano also, and so mostly it was that. But that feeling that we usually get, okay, the song is over, and we know what's supposed to happen. We get this adulation, right? So you're doing this film and you finish it and you look at the camera, it's like, like nothing. And it, it exposes what you were saying about that, needing that adulation.
Yeah. My wife is a singer, and we started doing online things. We do stuff for a local St. Mark's church here, part of the service every once in a while. And a friend of ours came to us and they said they were having you okay?
Yeah, good.
Okay. A friend of ours came to us, and young lady, and she's part of this Gowanus Canal Conservancy, and they have a big gala every year. And this year they couldn't have it, so they had it online. They asked us to perform for a half hour, and then to talk a little bit about the whole conservancy and stuff. She gave me some talking points, and I wasn't sure how I was going to do that without hearing people or seeing people. There were thousands of people, I think, were watching this. And all of a sudden, I got into the groove of like knowing that people were hearing us. But it was like, at first, it was just hard to gather some kind of instinctual way of doing this.
Mm-hmm.
But it worked out. My wife and I worked up some songs like It's a Wonderful World and What the World Needs Now is Love, Sweet Love. I did Summertime, I think, by myself or something like that. Oh, Ain't Misbehaving, I think it is, something like that. A couple of things by myself. And it was like the ham in me came out, even though there was no one standing in front of me or sitting in front of me.
Well, you keep Ain't Misbehaving, or however you want to turn that around. Keep behaving. And I knew this would be a informative and appropriate conversation, Art. And I'm going to stop recording, but we can chat a little bit more.
Sure.
All right. Thank you very
I'll
much.
tell you the real story then.
Okay.